The relationship between Sri Lanka and India is one of the most significant and enduring in South Asia. Despite being two distinct nations, Sri Lanka and India share deep historical, cultural, and geographical ties that have shaped their bilateral relations for centuries. While both nations have faced various challenges over time, Sri Lanka has consistently reaffirmed its commitment to ensuring that no harm comes to India. This pledge is rooted in the historical bond between the countries, their mutual strategic concerns, and their shared vision for peace and stability in the South Asian region. In this article, we will explore Sri Lanka's relationship with India from a historical, diplomatic, economic, and security perspective. We will also delve into current affairs and examine the evolving nature of the relationship, particularly in light of Sri Lanka's foreign policy decisions, regional dynamics, and the broader geopolitical context. The historical ties between India and Sri Lanka date back over 2 millennia. These two neighboring nations have shared a deep cultural, religious, and social heritage. The Indian subcontinent significantly influenced the development of Sri Lanka's civilization, particularly through the spread of Buddhism, which was introduced to the island by Emperor Ashoka's son Mahinda around the 3rd century BCE. This spiritual and cultural exchange formed the foundation of Sri Lanka's enduring relationship with India. Over the centuries, the two nations have engaged in trade, diplomacy, and mutual support. The cultural exchanges through Indian literature, art, and architecture have enriched Sri Lanka, and in return, Sri Lankan goods and ideas were exchanged with India. The maritime routes that connected the two regions fostered mutual engagement in economic and diplomatic affairs. Sri Lanka's strategic location in the Indian Ocean makes it an indispensable ally for India. The island nation sits at the crossroads of key international shipping routes and plays a crucial role in regional maritime security. The Indian Ocean is one of the busiest maritime trade routes in the world, and Sri Lanka's geographic positioning places it in a critical position for India's security and economic interests. The Pak Strait, separating India and Sri Lanka, is a vital maritime passage that connects the Bay of Bengal to the rest of the Indian Ocean. This proximity gives Sri Lanka immense geopolitical importance to India, as any foreign influence or instability in Sri Lanka can have direct repercussions on India's national security. In addition to its geographical importance, Sri Lanka is a key partner for India in regional security matters. As China's influence in the Indian Ocean continues to grow, Sri Lanka has become a focal point of strategic competition between India and China. Sri Lanka's decision to allow Chinese investments, particularly in infrastructure projects like the Hambantota port, has raised concerns in India about China's increasing presence in the region. Despite these concerns, Sri Lanka has consistently stated its commitment to not allowing any foreign power to threaten India's security. One of the most contentious issues in the India-Sri Lanka relationship has been the Tamil issue. Sri Lanka's Tamil minority, primarily residing in the northern and eastern regions of the island, has historically faced discrimination and marginalization. The demand for greater political rights and autonomy led to a protracted civil war between the Sri Lankan government and the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, LTTE, a separatist group that fought for an independent Tamil state from 1983 until the group's defeat in 2009. India's involvement in Sri Lanka's civil war was significant. The Indian government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, initially supported Tamil militants and provided assistance to the LTTE given the presence of a large Tamil population in India, particularly in Tamil Nadu. However, India's direct military intervention in the 1980s under the Indo-Sri Lanka Accord and the deployment of the Indian Peacekeeping Force, IPKF, led to tensions between India and Sri Lanka. After the IPKF's withdrawal in 1990, India continued to advocate for the rights of Tamils in Sri Lanka. India's position has always been that the Tamil issue should be resolved through peaceful dialogue and reconciliation. India has maintained that it does not support a separate Tamil Eelam, but instead seeks a political solution within Sri Lanka that guarantees the rights of Tamils. Since the end of the civil war in 2009, India has continued to call for accountability and justice for the atrocities committed during the conflict. India's involvement in the Tamil issue remains a sensitive topic, but it also underscores India's deep concern for the well-being of Sri Lankan Tamils and its commitment to ensuring that Sri Lanka upholds its obligations under international human rights laws. India and Sri Lanka have built a strong economic relationship over the years. India is one of Sri Lanka's largest trading partners and a significant source of investment. The India-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement, ISFTA, signed in 1998, was a landmark in bilateral economic cooperation, allowing for the free trade of goods and services between the two nations. Indian businesses have invested heavily in Sri Lanka, particularly in sectors such as telecommunications, energy, and infrastructure. Indian Oil Corporation, IOC, for example, has significant operations in Sri Lanka's energy sector, while Indian companies have also been involved in the development of critical infrastructure projects, including highways, ports, and airports. Beyond trade and investment, the two countries have also collaborated in areas such as education, healthcare, tourism, and technology. Indian institutions such as Indian Institutes of Technology, IIT, have partnered with Sri Lankan universities to enhance educational exchanges, and India has provided financial assistance for Sri Lanka's healthcare sector, particularly in the aftermath of natural disasters like the 2004 tsunami. Tourism is another area of significant cooperation, as both nations work to promote people-to-people exchanges. Indian tourists are among the largest groups visiting Sri Lanka. Lankan tourists also visit India for religious and cultural purposes, including pilgrimages to places like Varanasi, Tirupati, and Bodh Gaya. Sri Lanka's foreign policy in recent years has sought to balance its relations between India and China. On one hand, Sri Lanka has long-standing historical and cultural ties with India, while on the other hand, China has emerged as a major economic partner. Sri Lanka's participation in China's Belt and Road Initiative has raised concerns in India, as China's increasing influence in Sri Lanka could potentially undermine India's strategic interests. The Hambantota Port project, which is financed by China, is perhaps the most controversial of these ventures. The port was handed over to China on a 99-year lease in 2017 due to Sri Lanka's inability to repay the Chinese loans used to develop the port. While Sri Lanka has emphasized that the port will not be used for military purposes, India remains wary of the growing Chinese presence in the region. Sri Lanka's balancing act between India and China has become more challenging as both countries seek to expand their influence in the Indian Ocean. However, Sri Lanka has repeatedly reassured India that it will not allow any foreign power to use its territory against India's interests. Despite Sri Lanka's economic engagement with China, its security relationship with India remains critical, and Sri Lanka continues to emphasize that its ties with India are based on mutual trust and cooperation. In recent years, Sri Lanka has reiterated its commitment to ensuring that its territory will not be used to harm India. This commitment is evident in Sri Lanka's handling of regional security issues, such as maritime security in the Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka has cooperated with India in multilateral security forums such as the Indian Ocean Rim Association and the Bay of Bengal Initiative for multi-sectoral technical and economic cooperation. The current government of Sri Lanka, led by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, has worked to strengthen ties with India while also pursuing closer economic cooperation with China. However, Sri Lanka has made it clear that its strategic relationship with India remains paramount, particularly in matters of defense and national security. India has also maintained its position that Sri Lanka's sovereignty and territorial integrity must be respected, while advocating for the protection of the rights of the Tamil population. India has consistently pushed for a political settlement that addresses Tamil grievances and promotes national reconciliation in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has always been aware that its national security is deeply intertwined with India's stability and security. The country has demonstrated a commitment to ensuring that no external power will be allowed to undermine India's strategic interests. In return, India has supported Sri Lanka in its fight against terrorism and extremism, particularly in the aftermath of the Easter Sunday bombings in 2019 when Sri Lanka faced a horrific terrorist attack by Islamic State, ISIS-linked extremists. Sri Lanka's commitment to India's security was also evident in its support during the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, IONS, where Sri Lanka participated in joint exercises with India and other regional partners to address maritime security challenges, including piracy and illegal fishing. Additionally, Sri Lanka has agreed to cooperate with India in counterterrorism initiatives, intelligence sharing, and defense-related matters, further solidifying its stance that no force will be allowed to use Sri Lankan soil against India. The relationship between Sri Lanka and India is grounded in mutual respect, historical ties, and shared strategic interests. Sri Lanka has consistently reaffirmed its commitment to ensuring that no one will harm India, whether in terms of national security, economic interests, or regional stability. While Sri Lanka seeks to maintain its sovereignty and pursue relationships with multiple global powers, its ties with India remain critical to the country's long-term peace and security. As the geopolitical landscape of the Indian Ocean region continues to evolve, Sri Lanka's pledge to protect India's interests and prevent any external influence from destabilizing the region will be crucial in shaping the future of South Asia. India and Sri Lanka's continued collaboration, built on a foundation of trust and mutual understanding, will play a pivotal role in maintaining regional peace and prosperity.